I'm Dr. Hackey Reitman. Welcome to another episode of Exploring Different Brains. And it's not every day we get to interview real pioneers here. And my friend, Judge Ginger Lerner-Wren, who's the pioneer who founded the first mental health courts right here in Broward County. Judge Ginger, welcome. Thanks for being here again.
Hi, Dr. Hackey. It's so great to be here. I am absolutely thrilled to be back. And I can't wait to, talk about so many things have happened since our last interview. I think, what, about maybe 5 years ago? I don't remember.
Time flies, and especially in these coronavirus times, I've lost all sense of time.
That's true. I was saying, I don't even know what day it is half the time.
Yeah. And we have three things kind of happening at the same time here. We have the coronavirus times, okay?
Yeah.
We have everything going on in mental health, and along with somebody I know has a new book coming out, I hear rumors about.
Okay.
And the third thing was a news item just today, that has to do with mental health and the courts, and we'll get into that once we get rolling here. That's one of our. I'll just tell you in the audience. This just came across the news files now, but it's very pertinent to what we're talking about. A prominent Broward County, Florida, right here in Fort Lauderdale attorney, Robert Fensterscheib, his son, who has mental health issues and drug addiction issues, shot and killed him, and then took
and died by suicide.
Yes.
I heard that on the news. I read the article.
Yes.
This morning, in the Sun Sentinel, and you might not know this, Dr. Hackey, but I also sit as a member of the executive committee of the National Action Alliance for Suicide Prevention. So suicide right now, as a matter of fact, that's what I was writing on just before we started this interview, is very prominent really in my life on suicide prevention. Just is just one of those real high priority subjects that everybody's talking about.
Depression and suicide, amongst the many different forms of mental health and neurodiversity issues that are magnified as though they're on steroids during these coronavirus times.
It is, doctor, the combination, of the social isolation, all of the uncertainty, and just not having our regular routines, and we're just and all of the disruption, people, young people that were going to go to college, and looking forward to that life and all that. I mean, so many dreams, right, have been interrupted.
Yes, and we're so fortunate, at least for the younger kids, that here in Broward County, we've been able to keep the Boys and Girls Clubs open. So at least
that's great.
There's a place where there's pods for learning, there's food, there's supervision, all the single working moms and everything. It's tough going now, and we're gonna be seeing the effects. But let's talk about positive tools, the positive things we can do, and let's start with. Tell us how your mental health courts and your job have changed during these virtual times, as you and I speak virtually here instead of in person.
First of all, I was really hoping you would ask me something like that, because, right now I'm wearing my judicial robe, because as soon as I hop off here, I'm gonna hop right into my court, my courtroom, my Zoom courtroom. So you can see that my virtual background is in fact my courtroom. Again, hoping that one day, I do get back, but I have to say, you are the one that I think when we were talking on a panel at Nova Southeastern University some years ago, really spoke a great deal about technology. And, what I noticed a few things about making this very sudden leap, into technology, for court purposes. It really, I think, on the one hand, created a tremendous amount of positive opportunity. And that is that, people that, really, need the ability to access, get to their court hearings, they don't have to worry now about getting into a car or being around people or anything like that. They can, they can use their phone, they can use their laptop, they can use their tablets, and, all of a sudden there they are, they're in court. And it creates a dynamic which not only enhances the access, to court process, but I think it adds, a whole different paradigm, to the way we just handle, the courtroom over Zoom, for example. It's lighter. We have to be more flexible. We could ask people, because now we're all kind of close. There's this closeness, I think, in proximity to my computer or whatever it is, and to the people. Look at us, we're like sitting side by side, right? And I can say, hey, to the lawyers, to the how you doing? Tell me what's happening, right? How's your family? How are you feeling? We can talk about resources available in the courtroom. We could share what's happening. And I like the informality of the court process over technology, even more so. And I thought it was pretty informal the way I would run my courts, coming from a therapeutic approach and really humanizing the court process. But I think there's an added quality over Zoom.
What a great insight that is. I would not have thought of that. But when you think about it, it's a great leveling of the playing field. And I've noticed that with our neurodivergent interns, now that they don't have to come into the office and go through that ajna,
Yeah.
they're much more comfortable. When we have our meetings with about 12 or 15 of us, and they're still interacting with other people. It's not the same as live, and yes, there are drawbacks, but what you just discussed is very enlightening. I mean, I would not have expected that.
I mean, if you really think about it, just thinking about it like from a structural sense, typically, people would walk into a courtroom, there'd be deputies, I'd be sitting, judges are sitting higher on the bench. There's that big well area that keeps us distanced. All of the formality that a courtroom and a courthouse brings, and now we're just all in a box on a screen. And, we could flip, like I was just at a United Way of Broward County Board of Governors meeting this morning. And, there were just, I think it was a very large meeting, and here we are all looking, and this is going to age me, but we all look like the Brady Bunch, and, that was, and everybody had their little boxes, and it's just a really fascinating interpersonal, I think, way of relating. And in a court process, it does take down some of those barriers, I think.
Now, are you able to do your full caseload during these virtual times?
We're pretty limited. On the county court, I'm a county court judge, I'm a criminal court judge, so crimes up to everything up to a year in jail. And right now we're not doing jury trials. We're not doing jury trials because the courthouse has not been open for jury trials yet. There are some court functions going on, but juries, not right now.
What is the biggest issue in mental health that you've been able to perceive from your perspective as the mental health court judge?
Sure. Well, I want to circle back
Sure.
to something you said earlier, because as a topic, it just has to be the #1 topic right now. And that is the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic, has had on mental health, in our community, across the country, and globally. So I think we always knew that, mental health, for example, in our state, we're in Florida, and in most states around the United States, that, there's always resource shortfalls, correct?
Yes.
We know that there's always stigma surrounding mental health, and that is a barrier to care, that we have highly fragmented systems of care, and that we lack what we would call the capacity to really, treat people in terms of really meeting the demand for mental health. That was pre-COVID-19. And here we are now in the midst of, this pandemic that has now brought on, if you will, a triple crisis. So now we have the existing mental health crisis, or suicide epidemic crisis. We know we've also had an existing opioid crisis, correct? And so now it's really turned into everything rather conflating. And I think that, we have our essential workers that are experiencing, their own problems on the one hand, and then we have people that are facing economic and financial insecurity, hardship. Many have lost their jobs because of the closures. And so it is just a really, really challenging time in mental health that we have never experienced, I don't think, before in our lifetime.
Well, let's look at your new book and see if we can find any answers in there. Tell us about your new book.
Do I have a new book?
Out that your book. Well, tell us about your book.
Well, my book, which is I don't know if you can see this, but it's a court of refuge, stories from the bench. But what I was writing actually is a chapter for a book that isn't mine per se, but that I was asked to write like an introduction. And this book is on criminal justice and suicide, and why suicide prevention is so important to be integrated into the criminal justice system. And we know it is for so many reasons.
How interesting. When I interviewed William Packard, who wrote a book on neurodiversity in the justice system and the prison system specifically, what was so interesting to me was not the unfortunate high numbers of inmates with various neurodiversities and mental health issues and autism and different things. But the corrections officers themselves and the rates there, as you know, are quite high for suicide. Can you comment on the prison system at all?
Well, I can certainly say this, that as you said, the data is such that, more than half, of individuals in our prison system suffer from, as you said, a whole range of mental health disorders and other kinds of neurodiverse cognitive disabilities. And, our prison systems are not, equipped. They're simply not equipped to be treatment providers, and there really isn't any real rehabilitation going on in prisons, and that people, I certainly, certainly the story of America's first mental health court in Broward County, was really based on a young man who went to a forensic jail or prison as a result of traumatic brain injury, and was treated, if you will, so negligently that when he was released, and this is the story of Aaron Nguyen, that PBS Frontline called the unlikely savior of a new system of justice, for the mentally ill. In one of their early reports about the court, when he was released, there was no discharge plan. His parents that lived right here in Broward County, right in Plantation, Florida, they couldn't effectively manage him at home. There was no housing, there were no hospital beds. And he ultimately had an episode at a local grocery store, one of our popular chains here in South Florida, had an episode as he was checking out at the cashier. And the story, of course, and it's in the book, was that he ran out of the store in a panic, and he tragically collided with an 85-year-old woman who, crashed onto the pavement, fell to the pavement, and then ultimately died of head injuries. And now Aaron was charged with murder. And so this was back in 1993. And that case led to a grand jury investigation of Broward County's mental health system, which proved in a 153-page report to be essentially deplorable. That's how the Sun Sentinel described at the time Broward County's mental health system. There really was no system. We had no wraparound services. So if you had a neurodiverse disorder, if you were diagnosed with autism, if you were diagnosed with any kind of serious mental illness, you were pretty much out of luck.
And now, with coronavirus times, what I'm hoping has come about is that perhaps the forced use of telemedicine and telepsychology will increase the availability to all, to in prisons and everywhere else, where, people don't realize how big a thing transportation and logistics is. It's
well said. I don't even know if we realized it.
No, we didn't. It was thrust upon us, and now we do. And that's why so many companies and so many institutions will never be going back fully to the way it was.
It's true, Dr. Hackey. If there is, innovation out of desperation, I agree with you. I think that the telehealth, telemental health, the new use of apps, you know, that this is absolutely the new frontier in mental health, because the early emergent studies that I've been seeing have been really, really excellent in terms of the effectiveness of telepsychiatry, the effectiveness of mental health, of the use of technology for the purposes of developing warm, you know, a new form of a warm line that people don't necessarily even need counseling, but they do need someone to connect with, someone who is empathic, and someone who's supportive. And so I just think that, because I've been, you know, I'm constantly looking at the research, because I'm also an adjunct professor, and I want to stay up, you know, on the data. The data is looking really, really great. Although I have to say that, you know, from a clinical vantage point, it's the psychotherapists now that are really starting, you know, to feel the pain of the burden of the workload. Do you see what I'm saying? That they're
Sure. Yeah.
just, that the demand versus the workforce supply is so great that, like any of these essential health workers, they're feeling, you know, that burden.
It's very, very interesting. And, you know, it reminds me of the old days when I was chief resident in orthopedics at the Boston City Hospital. It was like a mass unit there. I mean,
Yeah.
we had people coming in from all over, getting thrown off of roofs, car accidents, everything. And that constant, and here now we have the constant of the mental health issues. We have the constant, it's a constant thing. You want to remind our viewers here and our listeners of the National Suicide Hotlines and other resources?
Absolutely. You know, first of all, if you are in Broward County, you know, if you remember, or anywhere really in the country, if you remember nothing else, you remember 211. 211. Eventually, we're going to have nationally our own designated mental health 3-digit number. That's going to be 988. But right now, that's not yet implemented. That's going to take a few years. So that is going to be, so 211. Now, the 211 will get you right to the National Suicide Lifeline. So 1-800-TALK, I think 2733. I want to make sure I'm saying that right. But the National Suicide Lifeline, you know, is you know, just incredible. They have privacy lines for first responders. They have special counselors for veterans. You could hit a chat button. There's wonderful resources, you know, in place now for anybody in terms of needing to talk someone. If you are a younger person, all you have to do is go to the JED Foundation for individuals that, for the lesbian, gay, you know, bisexual, transgender community. You know, there's the Trevor, TREVOR project. So there's so many wonderful resources now. There's crisis text lines, but all, you know, no matter where you are, you know, it's 211 or the National Suicide Lifeline, you know, will get you right to a crisis counselor.
That's great. That's great information. Um, you know, you've mentioned some particular part of our population is having a tough time is the LGBTQ population, the trans, non-binary. Uh, Can you comment on that population here in Broward County and some of your observations?
Well, I can, and I think that, there's so many, to me, it's extremely complicated in the sense that there's a lot of challenges that those men and women have, and, are very specialized and targeted to that area. And I think the first hardship is, family alienation. So, for example, there's families that, literally will not support, their children, their adult, teens, whatever, in terms of it, they come out and they're afraid to come out. A lot of these individuals, and especially our teens and younger adults, end up homeless. So, that in and of itself, I think that type of alienation and then the cascading consequences of that, really lead to some really, really, significant challenges. And then, of course, I think the issue is, you always want to talk to somebody who really gets you, correct?
Yes.
And I think that, that's why it's really important, like in Broward County, we have SunServe, and the clinicians and, the counselors and therapists at SunServe in Fort Lauderdale, that is their population. These are the people that they serve. And so from a cultural competency vantage point, because that's really what we're talking about, right? Cultural competency and really having that lived experience, whether we're talking about culture, race, ethnicity, cultural competency is everything. It's everything, because it's like anytime anybody goes to see a doctor, we want to be able to have a rapport, right? You
Yes.
want to have a rapport. You want to feel comfortable. You want to trust your healthcare provider. And I think we have to remind all our viewers that mental health is health, right? It's no different than any other kind of healthcare, mental illness, no different than any kind of physical illness. It's all health. And we really have to feel, a good rapport with the people that, are our healthcare providers.
That's a very, very good point and often overlooked. How can our Different Brains audience learn more about you?
Well, they could certainly, just look me up, on the internet. There's a lot of good blog posts that I've done over the years, both for Huffington Post and now for Medium. And there's on so many different subjects, it's just so many different wonderful subjects, and really about, they do come from an advocacy voice. Why? Because I am a judge who comes out of the civil rights, disability rights space, when I was a young lawyer, and certainly on the bench in mental health court, I'm advocating to mitigate and eliminate stigma and shame, and really make sure that everybody knows, that you're entitled to dignity, right? We all are. We all, deserve love, and we all deserve to live our dreams. And, we must, understand that, dignity really is the essence of justice. And I feel that's a lot of what the main themes of my writing.
Judge Ginger, what's the one thing society does not realize or understand about mental health?
Society doesn't understand that mental health is as essential as all health, and that we have to make sure that people get access to the health care that they need.
Well, Judge Ginger Lerner-Wren, it's been a pleasure to have you here yet again at Different Brains. And we thank you for your pioneering work in the mental health courts and all that you're doing. And keep up the great work. Thanks so much for being with us again.
Thank you. Thank you so much again for having me.
Exploring Different Brains is a production of Different Brains. Visit us at differentbrains.org.